While it is absolutely true that mainstream cinema is dominated by sequels, remakes, and reimaginings, every so often a truly singular vision manages to squeeze through the cracks and make it onto screens big and small. And that's absolutely true of these upcoming films, which, you gotta believe me, sound amazing. I'm Ewan, this is Whatculture, and here are just a few upcoming movies with insane plots. First up, good luck, have fun, don't die. Release date, February 13th, 2026. Whilst also doubling as great life advice, Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die is the latest film from Gore Verbinski, the man behind Ring, Pirates of the Caribbean, and A Cure for Wellness, and stars Sam Rockwell as a man who travels from the future to a diner in present-day LA to try and recruit people to help him prevent an AI apocalypse. Naturally, that proves easier said than done, given that Rockwell's protagonist looks, well, totally deranged, and from what the trailer has shown off so far, it sure as hell looks like one hell of a star vehicle for the actor. He'll also be joined by Haley Lou Richardson, Michael Pena, Zazie Beetz, Juno Temple, and more in what basically looks like the end-of-the-world comedy that last year's Y2K was so desperately trying to be. Early reviews from its premiere at Fantastic Fest back in September have praised it to the high heavens, so it appears that it will deliver all the dementedly fun goods that its trailer has promised. Next up, Coyote vs. Acme. Release date, August 28th, 2026. Coyote vs. Acme is the balmy new live-action animated hybrid in which Wile E. Coyote decides to file a lawsuit against the Acme Corporation after every product of theirs he uses to try and catch Roadrunner inevitably ends up failing. Coyote hires downtrodden human lawyer Kevin Avery, played by Will Forte, for the job, who faces off against Acme's own larger-than-life counsel and Avery's former boss, Buddy Crane, played by John Cena. Now, regardless of whether or not Coyote vs. Acme is a box office hit, it sure sounds like one hell of a creative concept, taking the heightened nature of Looney Tunes and cross-pollinating it with a legal drama to wildly wacky ends. And also, if they don't do like a humble southern lawyer bit with Foghorn Leghorn, then like, what are we doing? You need to get that chicken in the courtroom. Though Warner Bros. Discovery initially shelved the film in November 2023 to claim a tax write-off, and good lord, that's a long time ago now, the public backlash was vocal enough, including input from filmmakers who'd seen the film and loved it, that they ultimately backtracked. By early 2025, the filmmakers cut a deal with Ketchup Entertainment to distribute Coyote vs. Acme next summer, and if the early buzz on this one rings true, it could very well be one of 2026's most inventive and unforgettable comedies. But just please make sure you go and watch this one. Like, we all kicked up a huge storm for it. If it doesn't go through and, you know, become a huge hit, then it's gonna be a bit embarrassing. Next up, Mercy. Release date, January 23rd, 2026. Now, obviously, AI is one of the most polarizing hot-button topics of today, and so it's little surprise that we're currently seeing an influx of genre films centered around the perils of artificial intelligence, either explicitly or implicitly. And one of the more high-profile upcoming AI-themed romps is Mercy, in which Chris Pratt, I know, stars as a detective who is put on trial for allegedly murdering his wife. But get this, he's put on trial not by a jury of his peers, but by an AI Rebecca Ferguson, and has just 90 minutes to investigate the case and persuade said judge of his innocence. If Pratt doesn't convince Rebecca Ferguson of his innocence, then he gets immediately executed. And yeah, it just sounds like one of those fake Simpson movie plots Rainier Wolfcastle would be in, and I don't know if I'm extremely here for it or totally and utterly filled with contempt. Because in a word, it looks ridiculous. A contemporary riff on the shamelessly silly tech thrillers of the 1990s, and despite Pratt apparently spending most of the movie locked to a chair, it's being released in IMAX 3D, which is, it's a choice, I'll give him that. While few are expecting Mercy to be genuinely good, and I mean, it is releasing in January after all, the potential for some entertainingly campy nonsense is still really high, and you know, maybe seeing Chris Pratt struggle in a chair for like an hour or so, that could be a fun time. Next up, Dune Part 3. Release date, December 18th, 2026. If you thought the first two Dune movies were out there, well, brother, you ain't seen nothing yet. Dune Part 3 will be based on Frank Herbert's follow-up novel Dune Messiah, and while we won't detail the particulars of the plot to avoid spoiling it for anyone unfamiliar with the book, well, it's safe to say that it's positively insane. If it follows the basic structure of the source, well, Dune Part 3 will pick up years after the previous film, where the Fremen Jihad in the name of Paul Atreides, obviously played by Timothée Chalamet, has grown beyond his control. To call Dune Messiah's narrative a bold swing is to rather delicately understate the case, and it certainly presents a massive challenge for director Denis Villeneuve to realize its vision on screen. It's highly likely that Villeneuve and co-writer John Spates will make some alterations to the thornier aspects of Herbert's text, but even so, this is a much stranger and more polarizing story than the original Dune, and should result in one of the boldest sci-fi blockbusters of the century so far. On the way, Deepwater. Release date, May the 1st, 2026. Now, I know what you're thinking. Deepwater is not a remake of the 2022 erotic thriller starring Ben Affleck and Ana de Armas of the same name. It's actually a new disaster horror with a hilariously extra premise. So, get this. Plane crash movies and shark movies are a dime a dozen, right? But what about a film that combines the pair of them together? A Plark movie, if you will. It's the best I could come up with. Well, said Plark movie is Deepwater, a movie about a plane en route from LA to Shanghai, which makes an emergency water landing in shark-infested waters. So, in the film, the passengers must work together in the hope of surviving the pack of sharks drawn to the wreck. But what's especially funny about this is that Deepwater is being directed by Renny Harlin, who has previously directed films about both imperiled aircraft, Die Hard 2, Die Harder, and Hungry Sharks, Deep Blue Sea. Though Harlin's best days as a filmmaker are sadly long behind him, and star Aaron Eckhart is hardly a representation of a seal of quality these days, if it strikes the right tone, this could be an amusingly schlocky 2-for-1 special. Next up, The Death of Robin Hood. Release date, TBA, 2026. The Death of Robin Hood is the new film from rising filmmaker Michael Cernowski, who is behind Pig and A Quiet Place Day One. It offers up a unique revisionist take on the mythology of its iconic title character. This darker reimagining is said to revolve around an older and gravely wounded Robin, played by Hugh Jackman, who reconsiders his past life of crime and murder while being nursed back to health by a mysterious woman played by Jodie Comer. As mainstream skewing as a Robin Hood movie starring Jackman and Comer sounds on paper, the premise basically seems the polar opposite, offering up a more introspective take on a character typically known for his heroic, energetic, and swashbuckling nature. It'll be interesting to see if a more cerebral old man Robin story connects with audiences en masse, but after so many utterly pedestrian adaptations over the last 20 years, at least this one appears to be doing something genuinely different. I'm here for it. Next up, Back in Black. Release date, TBA, 2026. Good old Christopher Walken doesn't really appear in too many movies these days, and I mean, he is 82 after all, but at least his latest sure sounds like something really special. Back in Black is a comedic thriller set in a small American town that's obsessed with wellness, to the extent that the residents are juicing, meditating, and biohacking their way to immortality. Quite literally, no one is dying, which presents a huge problem for funeral director Clyde, played by Walken, who faces financial ruin due to the current lack of business. But Clyde's granddaughter Sam, played by Ella Ballantyne, decides to take matters into her own hands, and with the synopsis stating that the quote, business of dying suddenly gets a new lease of life, one can assume she effectively becomes a big old serial killer. That's certainly a doozy of a setup, seemingly passing satirical comments on both the nature of death as a business and current wellness trends too, with Walken appearing perfectly cast as the embattled protagonist. On the way, Poohniverse Monsters Assemble. Release date, TBA 2026. I can't believe I've just had to say Poohniverse Monsters Assemble in a video. This is where we're at now. fantastic. Even though it is easy to scoff at the twisted childhood universe and its collection of low-budget slasher films inspired by classic public domain characters, the filmmakers are at least running with the bit and clearly trying to do something just a little creative. With slashers based on Winnie the Pooh, Peter Pan, and Bambi already released, and Pinocchio Unstrung set to come out later this year too, the universe has swiftly gathered a collective of killers based on beloved childhood icons. And next, they're going to get the Avengers treatment in Poohniverse Monsters Assemble, where Pooh, Tigger, Peter Pan, Tinkerbell, Hook, Bambi, and Pinocchio will form a villainous supergroup to hunt down the survivors of their various killing sprees. So dumb. Oh, and it gets even better. The film will reportedly also introduce Sleeping Beauty, the Mad Hatter, the Cheshire Cat, Mary Poppins, Tintin, and other classic pop culture mainstays. So, yeah, the potential for this to be a massively overstuffed mess speaks for itself, but honestly, wouldn't it be a bit disappointing if it wasn't? On the way, Obex. Release date, January 9th, 2026. Obex is the new film from Albert Barney, in which a man, Connor Marsh, played by Barney himself, begins playing the titular cutting-edge video game, and once his beloved dog Sandy goes missing, the line between reality and gaming begins to uneasily blur, which, happens to me every weekend. Though Barney evidently didn't have a huge budget to work with here, the trailer does a brilliant job selling the relentless creativity of its visuals, fusing handcrafted practical effects with lo-fi VFX that serve as a homage to the 8-bit era of gaming. One of the trailer's pull quotes likens it to a mashup of The Legend of Zelda and David Lynch's Eraserhead, which is pretty much an instant way to sell a movie to a whole lot of people, myself included. The film has received universal acclaim since its premiere at Sundance back in January, and looks like a must-see for both gaming fans and anyone who wants to support micro-budget filmmaking with Eraserhead vibes. Next up, Judy. Release date, October 2nd, 2026. Judy is the apparent title of the mysterious new film from the great Alejandro G. Inarritu, the man behind Birdman and The Revenant, and though we don't know much about it despite shooting wrapping in the first half of 2025, what we do know is really fascinating. First up, Tom Cruise will star as the quote-unquote most powerful man in the world, who embarks on a mission to prove himself humanity's savior after a disaster he unleashed threatens to destroy the world. Obviously, casting Cruise in such a role is inherently perfect, whether it's supernaturally inclined or Cruise is just maybe playing POTUS, but he's sure to bring a commanding gravitas to the part either way. Inarritu is nothing if not a bold visionary filmmaker, and so it's little surprise that Cruise's co-star Michael Stuhlbarg called the film the craziest thing he's ever been a part of in his life, which is a great sell all around. To see Cruise finally back to dramatic acting again, and in a film that seems like such a wild swing no less, sounds like it's gonna be a bewildering delight. On the way, Whalefall. Release date, October 16th, 2026. Okay, alright, this one I'm really looking forward to. Single location genre films can be a whole lot of fun, but never before have we seen a movie set entirely inside a sperm whale. At least I don't think so. Whalefall is based on Daniel Krause's acclaimed 2023 novel and follows Jay Gardner, played by Austin Abrams, a scuba diver who is swallowed whole by a sperm whale while searching for the remains of his late father, played by Josh Brolin. And so begins the ticking clock. Jay just has an hour to escape his peculiar predicament before his oxygen runs out. So I know this is an adaptation, but for anyone adamant that originality in Hollywood is dead, well, here's one hell of a unique and fascinating concept with a whole ton of potential. While it certainly represents a challenge for filmmaker Brian Duffield to keep the confined setting interesting for a full feature-length runtime, he's lucky to be working with such well-regarded source material alongside a particularly strong cast, which also includes Elizabeth Shue, John Ortiz, and Jane Levy. Next up, Kung Fury 2. Release date? Kung Fury 2 is the long-awaited sequel to the acclaimed 2015 short film Kung Fury, which was a gloriously over-the-top homage to 80s martial arts and cop movies. It became enough of a viral hit that director David Sandberg, not that one, the other one, was able to secure funding to direct a feature-length follow-up, which was shot all the way back in 2019 and still hasn't come out due to legal red tape of all things. However, it sounds like a real doozy of a movie, and hopefully a positive resolution may be on the cards soon. The plot kicks off in 1985, where Kung Fury, played by Sandberg, and his squad of Thunder Cops find themselves facing off against Adolf Hitler, forcing them to travel through space and time to save the world. And that's really just scratching the surface of what this movie is. A 10-minute sizzle reel leaked earlier this year, and it showed off a police officer who happens to be a Triceratops, Michael Fassbender as a mullet-wearing cop, Arnold Schwarzenegger as the President of the United States, and even David Hasselhoff, because why wouldn't he be? Just get them all in there. Come on, everyone just come in. You need to be in Kung Fury 2. Hopefully it comes out soon. I pray to the action movie gods out there. Next up, Redux. Release date, February 20th, 2026. Redux, the new film from genre upstarts Kevin and Matthew McManus behind the Block Island Sound, is a sci-fi horror film with an absolutely irresistible premise. Irene, played by Michaela McManus, is a woman who travels through the multiverse in order to repeatedly kill Nelson, played by Jeremy Holm, the man who murdered her daughter. As a result, Irene has become dangerously addicted to killing him in a myriad of savage ways, all while maintaining hope that her daughter might actually still be alive in one of the universes out there. That is one hell of an original, potential-laden premise, and considering the rave reviews the film has received since its Sundance Film Festival premiere at the start of 2025, it appears that the brothers McManus have fully pulled it off. Considering that Hollywood ran the whole multiverse trend firmly into the ground in record time, Redux seemingly confirms there's still room for some inspired takes on the genre. Next up, The Sheep Detectives. Release date, May 8th, 2026. The Sheep Detectives is based on Leonie Swan's hit 2005 novel 3 Bags Full, and revolves around a group of sheep who leave their meadow for the first time in an attempt to solve the murder of their beloved shepherd. This sounds beautiful, I want this immediately. Hugh Jackman will play the doomed shepherd and is joined by a stacked live-action cast, including Emma Thompson, Nicholas Braun, Nicholas Galitzine, Molly Gordon, Hong Zhao, and Conleth Hill. The sheep will, meanwhile, be voiced by the likes of Bryan Cranston, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Chris O'Dowd, Regina Hall, and Patrick Stewart. Yeah, it goes without saying that The Sheep Detectives is a comedic yarn in its bones, and should offer up something totally different for murder mystery fans, with a screenplay from Craig Mazin, Chernobyl and The Last of Us, of all people. And better yet, if it's a hit, there is a sequel novel also ready to adapt, in which the sheep take on a werewolf. Hello, new favorite franchise. Next up, One Night Only. Release date, August 7th, 2026. Now, at a cursory glance, you might assume that One Night Only is a totally typical studio rom-com, given that it stars the rising duo of Monica Barbaro and Callum Turner, and is helmed by Anyone But You filmmaker Will Gluck. But the film has an unexpectedly strange and intriguing hook, given that it takes place in a reality where premarital sex is illegal. However, one night per year, the act is totally legalized, at which point Barbaro and Turner's characters desperately try to find someone to sleep with, and it's a fair guess who they might end up with. So yeah, it's basically sexy time The Purge, substituting cathartic violence for getting it on, and given that Travis Braun's original script landed on the 2024 blacklist of best unproduced scripts, there's a good chance it fully delivers on its clear potential when it actually drops. And even if it doesn't, well, at least it's trying to do something novel with the generic rom-com formula. Next up, Flowervale Street. Release date, August 14th, 2026. Flowervale Street is the new, long-awaited film from It Follows director David Robert Mitchell, and even though filming wrapped over 18 months ago, Mitchell and Warner Brothers have kept its plot shrouded in secrecy. Though rumors initially spread that Flowervale Street might be a secret Cloverfield movie, that doesn't actually appear to be the case. Instead, recent reports indicate that the Anne Hathaway and Ewan McGregor starring film follows a family in 1980s suburbia whose neighborhood is transported back to the prehistoric era following a violent thunderstorm, and hell yeah. The family and their neighbors must then survive encounters with dinosaurs and other wild creatures while finding a way to return to their own time. It's kind of like the toaster time machine from The Simpsons, you know? I'm here for it. Even though the Jurassic Park franchise suggests that dinosaurs are plenty enough spectacle to get butts and seats, the added wrinkle of a tiny, whiny twist should help Flowervale Street stand apart. And then there's the inherent intrigue of giving a director as idiosyncratic as Mitchell a presumably sizable budget to make a time travel-infused dinosaur movie that will surely be anything but familiar. On the way, the entertainment system is down. Release date, TBA 2026. Ruben Östlund is set to follow up his utterly unhinged triangle of sadness with another wild social satire, with a staggeringly stacked ensemble cast to boot. The entertainment system is down takes place on board a long-haul flight from England to Australia, and once the in-flight entertainment system fails, the passengers find themselves driven loopy by just sheer abject boredom. So yeah, it doesn't sound like Östlund's new film will be taking subtle jabs at our collective screen addictions, and considering how far he took the cruise ship from hell premise in his previous film, it's easy to believe he'll swing for the fences here too. As for the unfortunate souls doomed on the aircraft, well, we've got Keanu Reeves, Kirsten Dunst, Daniel Bruhl, Samantha Morton, Nicholas Braun, Connor Swindles, Julie Delpy, and many, many more. In lesser hands, yeah, one might consider this one as a premise better suited to a more contained short film, but Östlund has more than earned the benefit of the doubt at this point in his career. Next up, Frankenstein in Romania. Release date, TBA. An argument can definitely be made that we've seen enough movie adaptations of Frankenstein, especially with Guillermo del Toro's recent take offering such a extravagant and viral-friendly vision. But it's tough not to be tantalized by Frankenstein in Romania, a new version of the classic tale from acclaimed Romanian director Radu Jude, best known for his 2021 satire Bad Luck Banging or Looney Porn. What a great title. Jude, ever an iconoclastic filmmaker, will be giving the Frankenstein story an update rooted in recent Romanian history, with one key location being Bright Light, the very real CIA black site located in Bucharest. Better still, Jude will be collaborating with the Romanian-born Sebastian Stan, who Jude expects to play both Victor Frankenstein and the monster he creates. Given that Jude's recent version of Dracula was an almost 3-hour anthology of off-the-wall short stories loosely inspired by the character, there's no doubt that his Frankenstein will also be an adaptation completely unique in its own creation. Next up, How to Make a Killing. Release date, February 20th, 2026. How to Make a Killing is a new black comedy thriller from writer and director John Patton Ford, whose terrific 2022 debut, Emily the Criminal, turned a lot of heads. His second feature marks quite the ambitious step up, revolving around Beckett Redfellow, played by Glenn Powell, a blue-collar man who was disowned at birth by his uber-rich family. But an embittered Beckett gets a deranged idea. If he simply kills the 7 family members standing in the way of his inheritance, he'll collect the dynasty's entire $28 billion net worth. The trailer makes it look like an absolute riot, painting the 7 relatives, played by the likes of Ed Harris, Topher Grace, Bill Camp, and Zach Woods, as video game-style bosses who Beckett finds creative ways to dispose of. But yeah, either way, this one looks like a really good fit for Powell, especially coming off the back of the Running Man flopping, and as the script appeared on the 2014 blacklist, the potential for a bonkers hit speaks for itself. Last up, we have A24's Barney. Release date, TBA. Barney the dinosaur is one of the most recognizable children's characters ever, and though the franchise's popularity peaked in the 1990s, there's still considerable nostalgia for it among now adult fans. Even so, it was quite the shock in 2019 when Mattel announced that they were partnering with A24 to develop a new film based on Barney, with Daniel Kaluuya set to produce a script written by Ayo Edebiri, who will also star. The film will reportedly not be an expectedly ironic take on the IP, but instead embrace the earnestness of the source material, focused on a group of jaded millennials who are transported into the world of Barney's TV show. Edebiri's script has already been praised around town, and while it remains to be seen if such an oddball project can actually make bank at the box office, it at least sounds like sufficiently talented folks are involved with bringing it to fruition. So, call me open-minded and cautiously optimistic to go see a Barney movie in the year of our Lord 2025.